Sorry for the lack of uploads the past week, life's been busy. But I do appreciate those of you who still stick with me. Also, I'm over on Instagram too now for anyone that is interested, the link will be in the description. Moving on though, tonight we have 5 Skinwalker encrypted stories for your listening pleasure. So, without further ado, number 1. Anybody that has been on the Navajo reservation has either probably heard of some creepy things or have experienced pretty creepy things. Mainly skinwalkers. I've only seen one, but here is my story. I come from a small town in northern Arizona that's sandwiched between the Paiute Reservation to the north and the US's largest Navajo reservation to the south. My high school being so small, a 1A high school that has an average of 80 students enrolled every year. Always had to travel south about 5 to 10 hours one way to play another high school in any sport. This meant that we travelled a lot on the Navajo res. And we also usually stayed at hotels when we would head out to play and come home in the morning, but this trip was a little bit different. I remember the basketball coach saying that the school didn't have enough money to put up the teams in a hotel that trip, so we were going to be on the road for a total of about 12 hours. I was the only male senior to play basketball that season. We had just got done playing our game and headed home on our bus, Big Bellow. We were headed out and it wasn't long, about 2 hours of driving, before we had entered the res. By this time everyone was asleep, with it being about 2 in the morning. When we had crossed the res's border, I noticed the bus driver had sped up and was now going about 85 miles an hour. I thought this was a little weird because he had never exceeded the speed limit, at least not in my high school career. For some reason, I couldn't fall asleep like the rest of the teammates, and I just sat at the back of the bus staring out across the desolate desert landscape that was lit up by the full moon. As I looked out, I could see a figure running towards the bus at an angle of pursuit, and keeping up with the bus at 85 miles an hour. As the figure got closer, I saw that it was a humanoid form. As a matter of fact, it looked exactly like a human. Only that the face was painted half black and half white, with glowing eyes. Glowing eyes like a rabbit's eyes reflecting light from a spotlight. I immediately thought, holy crap, it's a skinwalker. The skinwalker ran up to the edge of the road and just kept up pace with the bus, hurtling sagebrush and rocks while staring at me. After I made eye contact with the thing, I could not look away. It was as if something was holding my head and eyes in place. The skinwalker just smiled at me, this inhumane smell that went ear to ear, showing crooked, yellow, pointed teeth. I felt like I was going to throw up and I was panicking through the whole ordeal. The skinwalker started to crumble down onto all fours, still keeping up with the bus. I could see his bones cracking and reform. Hair started appearing all over the skinwalker's body, and in about 3 seconds was now a coyote, and it ran back off into the desert out of view. As soon as it was gone, I ran to the onboard bathroom and puked a mixture of food and blood. I didn't want to tell anyone for fear they would think I was crazy. I confided in my Navajo friend. She told me that I needed to see the chief, who also happened to be a friend of mine, and get a blessing. I saw him the next school day in the parking lot. He just came up to me and mumbled something in Navajo while waving a feathered scepter-like thing, turned around, got in his truck and drove away. To this day, I haven't seen another skinwalker. It might be due to the fact I moved away from the town and reservoir, and if I do have to go south, I go around, way around. Number 2. This all happened about 5 years ago. One night, a few of my friends decided after a night of hanging out that we'd go on an adventure at about 3 AM. We took a ride about 50 miles to this old Spanish ruin in New Mexico. that was once the seat of the Inquisition. I can't for the life of me remember what the place is called. So we jump in the front gate to the place and start exploring. One of my friends brought a flute with him and he started playing it, and about 30 seconds in to his mediocre playing, something started screaming really, really loud on the tops of the long destroyed walls of the place. It was going from wall to wall really quick, screaming the most blood-curdling scream you've ever imagined. We noped out of there, and one of my friends, peed his pants, and drove for a few hours to the Bandelier National Monument, where we planned to camp out for the rest of the weekend. We got to the Bandelier at probably like 6 or 7 AM and set up our camp. After a few hours just talking about what the hell had happened at the ruins, I went to take a piss behind probably only like 300 feet from our camp. This is where everything starts getting a little fuzzy. I remember seeing 2 dust devils coming my way, and when I turned around again, 2 of my friends were there and they were motioning me to follow them. I couldn't help but to follow them, like I was being pulled behind them in shackles. I followed them for what seemed like 10 or 15 minutes, and then I snapped out of it. These weren't my friends. They had bright red hair, with my friends' faces and cat eyes. Both of these friends were brunette. I stopped walking and then they looked at me with probably the most terrifying gaze I've ever seen. Monsters in movies are nothing compared to this. I turned around and ran as fast as I could back to the way I came from. After like 5 minutes of a full sprint, I got back to that rock that I had pissed at and found our camp. Everyone was there, still sitting around talking, and didn't even notice that I was gone. I told them what had happened with the lookalike skinwalkers, and we packed up everything and left probably within like 10 minutes and got the hell back to Albuquerque. Number 3. I was a kid when this happened. My uncle and I were finishing up chopping or gathering firewood for my grandmother because it was getting dark driving back on a dirt road at about 30 miles an hour, give or take 5 miles. I had this awful sense of being watched. Before I could turn to look out my window on the passenger side, my uncle quickly shouted, "Don't!" I completely froze. My heart felt like it was beating out of my chest, then completely stopped when I heard a tap, tap on my window. My uncle sped up and was loudly praying in my native language. I didn't know what was going on and thought it was over till our truck suddenly dipped from the bed. My uncle then started saying, "Look at me and don't turn away," over and over. Then I heard it again, tap, tap, but from the window behind me. It was getting harder for me to breathe and I wanted to cry. A minute or two passed and the truck dipped again. My uncle looked around and sighed. It was quiet beside the truck in the road. He looked at me and said, "We will ask your father to do a prayer in the morning so the evil will forget our faces." I remember curling up in the seat and just staring at the radio watching the time, listening to my uncle sing an old prayer till we got to my grandmother's house. I called my uncle because I had a nightmare about that night. We talked about it for a bit. He said, "I didn't see faces, just eyes, like bright lights you only see on the roads. It watched you." Before hanging up, I tried joking with him about it. "Why didn't you just step on the brake when it was in the back?" No laughter, just a pause. Because it wasn't alone. Number 4. So when I was young and lived in Texas, a lot of stuff happened to me. One night my brother-in-law asked me to go to the nearby store to get some nachos. It was around 10 PM or so. The store is not too far away. So I started walking and it only took maybe 5 minutes. Where I lived, it was pitch dark because only a couple of homes could afford those light posts. Across the street from my house there was a forest, all along the dirt road until you hit the main road. Some creepy looking trees and bushes. The store was the only one that had a light post. There was enough light from the houses to know which house was yours. Anyways, I went to pick up the nachos and started to head home. Once I got away from the store, I started to hear something doing the psst sound. I stopped and turned around and saw nothing. I started to walk again and I heard psst again. I thought it might be my brother-in-law trying to scare me, so I cussed at him and told him to quit being dumb. I was a little scared, to be honest, because it was pitch dark and I kept hearing psst. I started to walk faster to get home, and then that's when I started to hear a low growl and hoof-like steps following me. I wanted to run, but I felt as if I was going to fall into the dark if I ran. I walked a little faster, but the hoof-like steps kept following me at the same speed I was walking. I finally had the guts to turn around, and what I saw was horrible. It looked like a big black dog, but with hoofs. It looked like if its hair was coarse like that of a pig and with big red glowing eyes. It was showing its teeth and fangs just like dogs and wolves do. Every step I took, it also took one, and I could hear the hoofs stomp on the dirt road. It had a low growl like it wanted to run and attack me. All I could do was walk backwards and keep my eyes on it so it wouldn't attack me. Just seeing the red glowing eyes gave me goosebumps. When I started getting close to my house, it disappeared like smoke. I ran inside, and I guess I was pale because my mum, brother-in-law and sister were asking what happened to me. I told them, and my mum said to stop talking trash. She did not want to believe me, or she was just too afraid. My brother-in-law went into the room and got his gun and went outside to see if he could see something. He said he didn't see anything, but he did hear psst and some evil laughter that gave him goosebumps as well. We don't talk about it in front of my mum because she gets scared. Now as an adult, I get goosebumps just remembering those red glowing eyes and the low growl that was about to attack me in my teenage years. I go every year to see my dad, which he still lives in that area, but he does not let me go out at night alone. It is still spooky in that area, but now there are more people living there and there are more light posts everywhere. That was one of my many incidents that I encountered. Number 5. I was on my way back from visiting my father in Houston, and I'd stayed pretty late. It usually takes me about an hour and 45 minutes to drive home because I live in the north of Houston in Cold Spring. I was about 25 minutes from home. I'd made the turn onto the road that takes you past the Lake Livingston Dam. It was around 10 PM and the long stretch of road is covered on all sides by woods with the occasional ranch house and or farm. There are no lights but one passing through there. I was past the light in total darkness with only my headlight shining. I saw something up ahead and slowed down. It was a furry creature on all fours crossing the road. I'll never forget the way I felt. The hair on my arms are standing up and I get goosebumps just remembering. It looked like the boy from the Jungle Book crossing the road with the hind part of the body higher than the front. It stopped just on the other side of my truck, passing a few feet in front of my truck. It was dark grey and black and it didn't seem to have a face, or maybe it just had too much hair. It was too big to be a dog or any animal. I still don't know what it was. All I know is that I drove off speeding away, looking back into my rearview mirror, hoping it wasn't following me home. I looked up and stayed close to my rifle the whole night, and to this day, driving through that stretch of road, I hope I never see that creature again. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please hit that like button and leave a comment for me. I would appreciate it. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next one. Have a pleasant evening.